Guys, we just got back from the theater from seeing Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, so we're gonna break it down. First, we're gonna talk about no spoilers, and then we're gonna get into spoiler territory. I will let you know, so if you don't want to watch that part, you can click away. Let's get into it though. So, let's start off with Simu Liu. Simu Liu plays the title character of Shang-Chi, and I have to admit, after seeing the trailers for this film, I tempered my expectations. The trailers did this film no justice. And the trailers did this film no favors at all. Just point blank. I don't know how else to express it. And frankly, when it came to Simu Liu, I was a bit worried that, these astonishing actors like Ben Kingsley, Michelle Yeoh, and Aquafina were going to be more interesting than the lead character. And we've seen that before with Captain Marvel and Brie Larson, how in Captain Marvel, Coulson and Samuel Jackson and Maria were more interesting than Captain Marvel. And I was kind of worried that was going to happen. Fortunately, Simu Liu has great chemistry with the entire cast. And I feel like that's where his strengths are. And the action scenes, some of the best action scenes in the entire MCU. There were so many references to Jackie Chan films, Jet Li films, old school kung fu flicks, Crouching Tiger. The list goes on and on. I cannot list all of them. This film paid homage to so many of them, and I thought it did it so well. I feel like everything that came before it felt like it led up to a movie like this, and I just, for the in the scope and lens of the MCU, that is, it was great. But moving on, let's talk about Aquafina. Aquafina, we've been knowing Aquafina was the jam, and in here, she brings it too. She is amazing in this film. She has the best lines in the whole film. And I actually am really grateful she made a joke as an Asian American character talking about the name Shang-Chi, because a lot of us that read the comics and playing the video games, we thought it was pronounced Shang-Chi. And we've been kind of going off that for a long time. And then when she made a joke saying, your name is Shang-Chi, that was perfect. And after that, we knew how to say his name after that. It was just, she had the best lines. She had the best lines, and she wasn't a Mary Sue girlfriend like some of them that are just there as wallpaper for the guy to rescue. She was a really good character, and I have to say, I've been seeing a lot of hate videos saying she's just this woke Rose Tico, throwaway character. No, that needs to stop now. Honestly, I hope everybody who sees that was hating on her before the film came out feels salty, because she was hilarious. She's always been hilarious, and we knew that. Moving on, we talk about the Mandarin, who is Shang-Chi's father. He is such a good, sympathetic villain. As we know, the MCU does not have any direct, straight-up villains like, X-Men or Spider-Man. So, but I have to say, this is one of the good ones. It was right up there, I would have to say, with Thanos and Killmonger. Very sympathetic, excellent fight scenes, very relatable, and well, I don't want to spoil it. I'm going to leave that for spoiler territory. Let me not say too much, but excellent. Had a lot of the dad had most of the depth in the movie, and I thought he was one of the most one of the characters that pulled on your heartstrings the most. So next up is the queen, Michelle Yeoh. She, as always, does Michelle Yeoh ever fail? I feel like the only movie Michelle Yeoh was ever bad in, and the whole movie was bad, was The Mummy 3. The third Mummy movie. That had an all-star cast, and that movie just, shame on the director. But anyways, Michelle Yeoh, as always, she brings it. She honestly gave me the vibes of Angela Bassett's character was for Black Panther. She is the matriarch of this movie, and it's just always a pleasure to see Michelle Yeoh kick ass and just be graceful doing it. Gosh, I want to see more of her. Her and Aquafina. Bring them back in anything. It doesn't even have to be a sequel for this. Bring them back in other Marvel movies. I love them. With that being said, the next character on the list is Shang-Chi's sister. I might be butchering this. I just saw the movie, so forgive me. I want to say Xiaoling? Something like that. I want to say it somewhere in that ballpark. That's how you pronounce it. She is Shang-Chi's sister, and they both were raised under, their antagonist father. So, she's got a little bit of an edge to her. She's really awesome. her fight scenes are very good. She had some sequences that reminded me of Gogo from Kill Bill. She reminded me of there was a fight sequence, and some of the fight sequences reminded me of Rush Hour 2. Like, she reminded me of the antagonist a little bit from Rush Hour 2 sometimes too. She really had that stare down and the fight scenes and that presence. I loved it. She really brought it too, and I think this is her first film, so I'm really happy for her. With that being said, another character that really I didn't know would be in this movie was Shang-Chi's mother, and I thought she was just really good. I think when you first saw her and her first interactions with the Mandarin, they had this amazing Crouching Tiger fight sequence. It was just beautiful. One of the best fight scenes in the film too, and that says a lot because this film has a lot of good fight sequences. I mean, like I said, some of the best fighting sequences in the MCU, and I'm not just saying that. There's some really, like, you can tell whoever directed this film really just critically analyzed and took apart a lot of these great martial arts films, and they like really want to inject that into the MCU, and it really worked. So next up, I'm checking my notes because I don't want to miss anybody here. So is Ben Kingsley. So the last time we saw Ben Kingsley was in a short that happened after Iron Man 3. And as we know, he played an interpretation of the Mandarin, an imposter for a terrorist organization in Iron Man 3. And in the short, we saw that the actual Mandarin was not happy about that. And he's like, you're going to pay for this. And that's the last we saw of him. And I think it's on Disney Plus now if you want to see both Iron Man 3 and I don't know the name of the short, but the short with Ben Kingsley where he gets taken away by the Mandarin. Definitely want to check those out if you haven't seen them. I have to say, Ben Kingsley is a great actor. And this is kind of funny because back in his career, he did play Gandhi, who was an Asian character. And, you know, it's kind of interesting to see him come full circle of playing Asian characters to, like, talking about being an actor impersonating Asian characters to actually being a supporting role that was pretty good in this film. And actually, like, I feel there was a bit of a redemption arc for his actor, and I hope that came through. But then again, I'm only like 15% Asian. I'm not over here passing the forgiveness card to people that whitewash these roles. So I will say this. I love Ben Kingsley, though. So he was hilarious in this role, too. And his creature, he had a creature in the film that followed him, but I don't want to spoil too much. They had great, hilarious moments, too. Next up, I want to say this film very much broke away from the MCU formula. I have to be very honest with you. Some of the MCU films are very mediocre to me. I mean, I grew up in the day and age of the first 2 Spider-Man films, some of the X-Men films, Blade. So when I tell you, honey, that some of the MCU films are very mediocre in comparison to what we grew up on before the MCU, some of them are very mediocre. And I have to say, very formulaic. And we see the same thing sometimes in some of these films. And I have to say, this kind of broke away from the formula and took some chances and went a different direction and was very fresh. And I appreciate that. I will say, I saw a lot of parallels between this and Black Panther, where there's hidden civilizations that have this mysterious metal, and you know how instead of Africa and African American, there's like this Asia and Asian America, you know, back and forthness. And the matriarch, like I said, with Angela Bassett's Queen of Wakanda and Michelle Yeoh's character, and even Shia Ling's character gave me Okoye vibes. Just like that's another thing too. Shang-Chi is surrounded by just so many amazing women characters like Black Panther was. And no one's really a Mary Sue. Everybody really is, you know, pulling their weight in this film. And I really appreciated that because there were some moments, particularly some of the fight scenes, where I gasped. I was like, ooh, like all of them, all the fight scenes are really good. I will say the only one, and we're starting to head into spoiler territory a little bit here, the only one that really sucked, and this is like every Marvel movie, so I'm not trying to pick on this film. Yeah, there's always a weird CGI 3D climax at the end where it kind of just takes you out of there and it feels like a video game cutscene you're watching. This film does it too, unfortunately. But you know what? I've gotten used to it. It's nowhere near as offensive as Black Widow's, you know, falling from the sky cutscene. Like, that was just ridiculous. Like, as you can see, I didn't even review that movie. I was just like, you know what? I like Florence Pugh, moving on. But we're not talking about Black Widow today. Speaking of which, in the Fight Club that the sister owns, there was a cameo of not only Abomination, but one of the Black Widows from the Black Widow film. So that was a kind of nice tie into the MCU thing. And so like I said, we're in spoiler territory now. At the end of the film, post-credit scene, I want to say it had two post-credit scenes, if I'm not mistaken. The first one had Wong, Captain Marvel, and the Hulk. And I thought that was a brilliant post-credit scene because, one, it sets it up that Shang-Chi's starting to become a part of the Avengers now, which, great. We don't have to spend a whole film establishing that. Two, we got to see the Avengers kind of act as co-workers and such. And we also got to see that the rings are very much contacting something. We don't know what's going to happen next in the MCU. I mean, there's a lot of things happening right now on Disney Plus and the films going forward with the Eternals and others, and so many good things. I have to say, and it left the post-credit scene left the film on such a happy, fun note that like it was one of the best to date. It gave us a little cliffhanger, and it was just hilarious. You'll see it. You'll know when you see it. I don't want to spoil too much because I really do want you guys to see this film. Then the last post-credit scene had Shang-Chi's sister. And I will say this. She gave me Lucy Liu vibes in Kill Bill. Like when she played Oren Ishii. Like she was a boss. I was so here for it. And I have to say, this film, I know that it was intended to be the Black Panther, what the Black Panther did for the Black community, this was supposed to do that for the Asian community. And like I said, I'm only like 15% Asian. I'm not the person to judge this on those things. I hope it did that, what it was supposed to do. It's going to be really hard to judge this film based on numbers because we're obviously in a pandemic. So you really can't like compare it numbers wise. But I have to say though that this is a film that makes everybody resonate with this character. The same way I think that Black Panther represented the Black community and really just put a spotlight on just Black excellence, and it really uplifted the Black community, but at the same time, everybody was rooting for Black Panther. I feel like this film does the same thing for Asian characters, particularly Asian American viewers. And there's a difference because China and Asia don't really appreciate the same things as Asian Americans all the time and the American audience. They're very different, and I think that it's the same way African Americans are different from Africans. And it's the same thing with Asian Americans and Asians. Asians that are from Asia. And we're going to see how it plays out there. If it plays out there, that's another thing that might affect the movie. If it doesn't play out in China, which was rumbling for a while, we'll never know how much it made and how that's going to reflect how people view the film. Some people might consider it a flop if it doesn't have that China box office. And I don't think this film is a flop. I think this film was a lot of fun. And I think we're starting to get a lot of characters in the MCU where they're like Okoye and Black Panther and Shang-Chi. And I think that they're very great representation, but at the same time, everybody loves them. Everybody wants to be them. Everybody appreciates them. And it doesn't feel like pandering. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, woke is broke. And, everybody's trying to make a movie based on, a minority. And sometimes, and they're trying to be woke and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong. There are some films, like I feel Wonder Woman 1984 would just check a box. Like, those people that post on Twitter, like some social justice stuff, but you can clearly tell they don't practice it and they're just trying to like pander and trying to, trend and trying to say the right things and not really, you can tell it just kind of feels like, I felt like Wonder Woman 1984 felt like a white feminist film, and it really, didn't really understand the audience of women. I feel like, I hope this film did Asian Americans proud. China's a whole different ballpark, and they're probably not going to like films made by Americans for them. I know that's always been a talking point, but we'll see. Honestly, Asia is a huge supporter of the MCU, so we're going to see what happens. I really hope this film makes a lot of positive waves because I thought it was a brilliant film. And it didn't really have that many flaws. Like I said, I think a lot of films fall apart in the third act, and I think, this film wasn't flawless. Like I said, I mean, it wasn't Endgame, it wasn't Infinity War, it wasn't Black Panther, but I'd say it's right underneath it. It's right there. I have to say it's better than most of the MCU films. And I have to say what makes a good MCU film is if it can stand on its own without the support of the MCU universe. And you've seen that with films like X-Men and Blade and Spider-Man. You know, these are films that didn't have that shared universe or don't need it because they're good on its own. And I really do have to say, that's my review on it, and I stand by it. And I'm a Shang-Chi supporter. I might even pick up the comic. All right, guys, leave me a thumbs up for the algorithm gods. Leave a comment. Even if you can subscribe, because it all helps and it lets me know that this is worth making. Me, Jinx, signing out.